They did it. They finally did it. The Tennessee Volunteers beat the Florida Gators for the first time since 2016 this past Saturday in Neyland Stadium. And in doing so, they've moved up to number 8 on the most recent AP poll that was released just yesterday, in the top 9 for the first time since 2006. And going into this game, you knew that the Vols had the positional advantage. You knew that they had the home field advantage. You knew that they were better than the Gators. They had better wins. They didn't have any losses. And if you go position by position group, like we just did last week with A&M and Arkansas, they would be better than Florida in just about every position, but especially the quarterback position, which we'll go into later. But you just didn't know if the fact that Tennessee had lost 16 out of the last 17 games was going to affect the way that they played this one. You didn't know if there was going to be a mental block that this team had to get over, but it turned out that there wasn't. It turned out that Josh Heupel doesn't care. It turns out that these are his guys, and they don't care about 17 years ago. They care about now. And this was a team victory for them. Now let's get into this game. Before going to Tennessee, I'd love to start with the Florida Gators and, more importantly, with Anthony Richardson. Big props to Anthony Richardson because he played, honestly, phenomenal. He had over 450 passing yards with 3 total touchdowns on the day. Only 1 pick, but it was a last-second heave to the end zone as time expired, as he was trying to get a Hail Mary last-ditch effort for the Gators to win that game. And he played incredible. You could see in the defensive scheme that the Vols were saying, okay, we're going to make this guy beat us with his arm and not his legs, because they knew that he's a quarterback that can easily beat people's legs, and they were going to test to see if he could beat them with his arm. To be honest, he almost did. Now, he didn't, but he proved that he could do it to maybe a team who doesn't have the same offensive firepower that Tennessee does. But big props to him, especially as you look through this whole week with people on Twitter, on social media, on Instagram, on SportsCenter, on SEC Nation, everywhere. You heard Anthony Richardson, 0 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. All the game day signs said, I have as many touchdown passes as Anthony Richardson does. Anthony Richardson has more tackles than he does touchdown passes. All this stuff. He heard the negative comments for this game that was set on a huge stage. 3:30 CBS. It was in a rival's home. Checkerboard Neyland. So much buzz surrounding the Vols this year. And he went in there and he played his tail off. So I want to start with a big hats off to Anthony Richardson. I thought he answered the call, played really well, and he proved that he is a guy who has a lot of potential. He might not be there this year. He might not be there now, which is so fine. But I do think the Gators might have their quarterback for the future. Now let's talk about a quarterback for now, and that is Hendon Hooker for Tennessee, who played even more phenomenal than Anthony Richardson did. He played almost perfect, going 22 for 28, completing just under 80% of his passes, with 461 total yards, with 112 yards rushing, 349 yards passing, with 3 total touchdowns. More importantly, he didn't throw any interceptions. And if you look at the games that he started as a Tennessee Volunteer, last year he got thrown in there against Pitt after Joe Milton started, threw an interception, had a couple touchdowns, but he started that Tennessee Tech game the week after, and he started every game since. And in that span, he's thrown 45 touchdown passes and just 2 interceptions. This offense clicked great, and it was through him, right? The rushing attack was awesome because he balanced it. He rushed for himself. He could prove that we can do it in the air, opening up the running game for backs like Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. And Brew McCoy had an incredible game, received for 100 yards and a touchdown. I don't think he had a single reception in the second half, so it was all first half stats, but he played great, and after the game said that coming to Tennessee was the best decision that he's ever made. So if you're a Tennessee fan, that is something you love hearing because it just proves that these guys love playing for Heupel. They love playing for this team. They love playing for Hendon. They love playing with Hendon. But more importantly, more than anything, they love being Tennessee Volunteers, which is just what this program needs after years and years and years of loss and disappointment and maybe thinking you're back and then going right back down. to a mediocre season, and they are looking great this year. I will say it. They are looking great. Now let's go to that defense that game. They played more of a bend, don't break style. And they almost broke, but they didn't. Pass rush was decent, but not the pass rush you'd necessarily want to see with a guy like Anthony Richardson at quarterback, or a guy that if you hurry him, he might not throw the best ball. And these corners prove that they might not have been able to play one-on-one with these Florida wide receivers, as you saw as Anthony Richardson threw for 450 yards against this team. Now, if this defense wants to improve in the next couple games, which I think they can, we're only 4 games in, they have to be a little bit stronger in the secondary. Because soon you're going to play teams like Alabama, like Georgia, kind of like Kentucky, that have offenses that can keep up with this Tennessee offense. So this defense has to be a little bit stronger against these next couple teams if they want to get through that gauntlet. Now let's talk about that gauntlet that Tennessee has coming up. They have a bye week this week, which is great. They can get their players some rest, get Hendon back to fully 100%. They have LSU coming up the week after the bye. And then right after that, come back to Knoxville, and then come the Crimson Tide. Now the week after that, they have a little bit of an off week with UT Martin. Not saying it's not a losable game, but it's UT Martin. Let's be honest here. And then right after that, Kentucky comes into Knoxville. Then the game after that, the Vols travel to Athens to take on Georgia. If you can get through those 5 games with just 2 losses, it is a great time to be a Tennessee Vol. But who knows? With a quarterback like Hendon Hooker, I don't think that it's that ridiculous to think that you can't win every single one of those games.